The woman stumbled into the valley with nothing but the clothes on her back and a wound across her soul too deep for anyone to see. And Lucas Bradford knew the moment he saw her that she was running from something worse than death itself. It was late August in 1873, and the Montana Territory heat pressed down on the land like a heavy hand. Lucas had been mending fence posts on the eastern edge of his property when he spotted her, a figure in the distance moving with the determined gait of someone who refused to fall no matter how badly her body wanted to give up. She wore a gray dress that had once been decent, now torn at the hem and stained with trail dust. Her dark hair had come loose from its pins and hung in tangled waves around her shoulders. He watched her approach his property line, every instinct telling him to mount his horse and ride down to meet her before she collapsed. But Lucas had learned to be cautious over the years, learned that some people brought trouble with them like a second shadow. Still, he could not just stand there and watch a woman in distress. By the time he rode down to where she walked, she had stopped, swaying slightly on her feet. Her face was flushed from sun and exertion, her lips cracked and dry. When she looked up at him, her eyes were the color of mountain violets, deep purple blue and filled with a wariness that spoke of hard experience. "Madam," Lucas said, removing his hat, "you look like you could use some water." She studied him for a long moment, taking in his weathered face, the lines around his gray eyes that spoke of 32 years of living, most of them hard. His dark blonde hair was shaggy under his hat, and a several days' growth of beard shadowed his jaw. He sat tall in the saddle, broad-shouldered and lean, dressed in worn denim and a faded blue shirt. "I could," she finally said, her voice hoarse, "if you are offering." He pulled his canteen from his saddle and handed it down to her. She took it with trembling hands and drank deeply, though not greedily. When she handed it back, she met his eyes again. "Thank you," she said. "I will be on my way now." "Where are you headed?" "Anywhere that is not where I have been." Lucas understood that sentiment better than she knew. "The nearest town is Mineral Point, about 15 miles northeast. You will not make it on foot before nightfall. Then I will walk through the night. There are wolves in these mountains, madam, and worse things than wolves." She smiled then, a bitter expression that did not reach her eyes. "I have already met worse things than wolves, sir. I am still standing." Something in her words, in the set of her shoulders despite her exhaustion, reached past the walls Lucas had built around himself. He made a decision that surprised him even as the words left his mouth. "I need a housekeeper," he said. "My place is not much, but there is a small cabin near the main house. Room and board plus $20 a month. No questions asked about where you come from or what you are running from." She stared at him, and for a moment he thought she would refuse. Then her shoulders sagged slightly, as if a great weight had shifted. "Why would you offer that to a stranger?" "Because once upon a time, I needed someone to give me a chance without asking questions. Nobody did." He met her eyes steadily. "I am offering you what I wished someone had offered me." "I do not even know your name." "Lucas Bradford. This is my ranch, the Double Bar B. Been working it for 8 years now. Victoria Kane," she said quietly. "And I accept your offer, Mr. Bradford." He dismounted and gestured to his horse. "Can you ride?" "Yes." "Then let us get you to the house before you fall over." The ride back to the ranch house took 20 minutes. Victoria sat in the saddle while Lucas walked alongside, leading the horse. She did not speak, and neither did he, but he noticed how she looked around, taking in the land with an assessing eye. His property stretched across a wide valley with mountains rising on 3 sides, good grazing land with a creek running through it. He had about 200 head of cattle, a dozen horses, and more work than one man could handle alone. The ranch house was a sturdy log structure he had built himself, 2 rooms with a loft above. Nearby stood a smaller cabin that had been home to his former ranch hand before the man had decided to try his luck in the gold fields. A barn, a corral, and various outbuildings completed the homestead. Lucas helped Victoria down from the horse. Up close, he could see she was younger than he had first thought, probably 23 or 24, with fine features and a straight nose. There was a fading bruise on her left cheekbone that she had tried to hide with her hair. "The cabin is yours," he said, leading her to the smaller structure. "It is clean. I will bring you some supplies and something to eat." "Thank you, Mr. Bradford." "Lucas," he said, "we are not formal out here. Then you must call me Victoria." He nodded and left her there, walking back to the main house with his mind churning. What had he just done? He had sworn off trusting people, especially women, after Caroline had betrayed him 5 years ago. She had been engaged to him, had seemed to love him, but when her former beau returned from the war with money and prospects, she had left without a backward glance. The experience had soured something in Lucas, made him retreat into himself and his work. Yet here he was, offering employment and shelter to a complete stranger. He gathered food from his larder, bread and cheese and dried beef, along with a jar of preserves and some coffee. He filled a bucket with water from the pump and carried everything to the cabin. Victoria had taken off her shoes and was sitting on the edge of the narrow bed, looking at her blistered feet. "I brought what I could for tonight," he said, setting the supplies on the small table. "Tomorrow we can discuss your duties properly. For now, you should rest." "Lucas," she said, and he paused at the door. "Why did you really offer me this job?" He considered lying, then decided she deserved honesty. "Because you looked like I felt 8 years ago when I came to Montana with nothing and nobody would give me a chance. Because I know what it is like to need help and have nowhere to turn. And because something tells me you deserve better than whatever you are running from." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "I will work hard for you. I promise that." "I believe you," he said, and realized he meant it. That night, Lucas lay in his bed in the loft of the main house and stared at the ceiling beams. He could see lamplight glowing in the cabin window until late into the night, and he wondered what thoughts kept Victoria awake. He wondered what she had survived, what had put that wariness in her eyes and that bruise on her face. But he had promised no questions, and Lucas Bradford was a man who kept his word. Morning came with the rooster's crow, and Lucas was up with the sun as always. He had chores to do, animals to tend, and a fence line to finish mending. He was surprised when he came down from the loft to find Victoria standing on his porch, dressed in the same gray dress but with her hair neatly pinned up and her face washed. "I thought I should begin my duties," she said. "Did you sleep some? Enough?" She met his eyes. "What do you need me to do?" Over breakfast, which she insisted on cooking despite her exhaustion, they worked out an arrangement. Victoria would handle the house, the cooking, the laundry, and the vegetable garden that Lucas had let go to weeds. In exchange, she would have her own space in the cabin, meals, and her wages. It was a fair deal, more than fair, and they both knew it. "I should warn you," Lucas said as he ate the eggs she had prepared. "I am not easy to work for. I have been alone for a long time, and I have gotten set in my ways. I do not talk much. I do not want company most of the time. I just need someone to handle the things I do not have time for." "That suits me fine," Victoria said. "I am not looking for conversation. I am looking for a place to catch my breath." "Fair enough." The first week passed in a careful dance of boundaries. Lucas went about his work on the ranch, rising early and often not returning to the house until after dark. Victoria threw herself into her duties with an intensity that spoke of desperation, as if she feared he would change his mind and send her away. She cleaned the ranch house from top to bottom, scrubbed clothes until her hands were raw, weeded the garden and planted late-season vegetables, and cooked meals that were simple but good. They spoke little beyond what was necessary, but Lucas found himself noticing things. The way she flinched at sudden noises, how she always positioned herself with her back to a wall and her face toward the door. The fact that she never mentioned her past, not even in passing. On the 8th day, Lucas rode into Mineral Point for supplies. The town was a rough collection of buildings serving the ranches and small mines in the area, with a general store, a saloon, a church, and not much else. He was loading flour and coffee into his wagon when Sheriff Tom Doherty approached. "Lucas," the sheriff said with a nod. Tom was in his 50s, gray-haired and competent, one of the few men in town Lucas considered a friend. "Tom, heard you took on a housekeeper. News traveled fast in small towns." "That is right. Woman came in on foot about a week ago, I heard. Nobody knows where from." Lucas met the sheriff's eyes steadily. "She is a good worker. That is all that matters to me." "Now, I am not trying to pry," Tom said, holding up his hands, "but I wanted to let you know there have been some men asking questions. Came through about 3 days ago, rough-looking types. They were asking if anyone had seen a woman traveling alone, dark hair, mid-20s. Said she was a runaway wife." Lucas felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What did you tell them?" "Told them I had not seen anyone matching that description. Told everyone else in town to say the same if they were asked. I did not like the look of those men, Lucas. Whatever that woman did, I do not think she deserves to be dragged back to wherever she came from." "Thank you, Tom. Just watch yourself. Those men might come back around." The ride home seemed longer than usual, Lucas's mind turning over what the sheriff had said. A runaway wife. That would explain the bruise on Victoria's face, the haunted look in her eyes, the way she startled at loud noises. Anger kindled in his chest, surprising him with its intensity. He had no claim on Victoria beyond that of employer, yet the thought of someone hurting her made his hands clench on the reins. When he arrived back at the ranch, he found Victoria hanging laundry in the yard. She looked up at his approach, and something in his expression must have shown because she went still, her hands dropping to her sides. "What is wrong?" she asked. He climbed down from the wagon. "Let me put the horses up, then we need to talk." 10 minutes later they sat across from each other at his kitchen table. Lucas had poured them both coffee, though neither had touched it yet. "There were men in Mineral Point a few days ago," he said without preamble. "Looking for a woman. Dark hair, mid-20s. They said she was a runaway wife." The color drained from Victoria's face. "Did they say anything else?" "No. And the sheriff sent them on their way without any information, but he thought they might come back." Victoria stood abruptly, walking to the window. She wrapped her arms around herself, and Lucas could see she was trembling. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "His name is Vincent Kane. We were married 3 years ago. I was 21 and he was charming and handsome and everything I thought I wanted. My parents were dead, I had no one, and he seemed like an answer to prayer." She laughed bitterly. "The first time he hit me was 6 months after the wedding. He said it was my fault, that I had embarrassed him in front of his business associates. I believed him. I actually believed him." Lucas said nothing, letting her talk. "It got worse over time. The beatings became more frequent, more severe. He would hurt me where it did not show, or he would make sure I stayed inside until the bruises faded. I tried to leave twice. Both times he found me. The second time he broke 2 of my ribs and told me if I tried again, he would kill me." She turned to face Lucas, and the pain in her eyes cut him like a knife. 3 weeks ago, I overheard him telling one of his men that I had become a liability, that I knew too much about his business dealings. "Vincent is not just cruel, Lucas. He is a criminal. He has his hands in everything from smuggling to claim jumping to murder, and I heard things, saw things I should not have. What happened 3 weeks ago? He came home drunk and angry. He had lost a business deal and he blamed me somehow. He beat me worse than he ever had before, and I knew if I stayed he would kill me. So I waited until he passed out, took what little money I could find, and I ran. I have been running ever since. Lucas stood and moved to her side, though he was careful not to touch her. You are safe here, Victoria. I will not let anyone take you back to him. You do not know Vincent. He does not let go of what he considers his. He will keep looking. Let him look. This is my land, and I protect what is mine. She looked up at him, searching his face. Why? You do not know me. I am nothing to you. You are someone who needed help, and I was in a position to give it. That is enough. He paused, then added quietly, and you are not nothing, Victoria. You are a person who deserves to be safe, to be free. Everyone deserves that. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and this time she did not try to hide them. I do not know how to repay you. By staying alive and building a life here, that will be payment enough. Over the following weeks, something shifted between them. The careful distance remained, but there was a new understanding, a trust slowly building. Victoria continued her work with the same fierce dedication, but Lucas noticed she smiled more now, especially when she was tending the garden or cooking. She had a gift for making even his simple cabin feel like a home, with wildflowers on the table and curtains she had sewn for the windows. For his part, Lucas found himself looking forward to the end of each day, when he would come in from the range to find a hot meal waiting and Victoria sitting on the porch watching the sunset. They began to talk more, small conversations at first about the weather or the ranch, then gradually deeper discussions. He learned she loved to read but had few books. He brought her volumes from his own small collection and was rewarded with her smile of delight. She learned that he had grown up in Kansas, that his family had died of fever when he was 18, that he had drifted for years before settling in Montana. Neither of them spoke of what was growing between them, the awareness that crackled in the air whenever they were near each other. Lucas told himself it was foolish, that she was recovering from trauma, and he was simply the first kind face she had seen in a long time. But he could not deny the way his heart lifted when he saw her, or the protective instinct that roared to life whenever he thought of her being hurt. September gave way to October, and the aspens on the mountainsides turned gold. Lucas began teaching Victoria to ride properly, taking her out on one of his gentler mares. She was a quick learner, and soon they were riding together in the evenings, exploring his property and the surrounding valleys. It was on one of these rides that they found the old homestead, abandoned years ago, its cabin nothing but a skeleton of weathered boards. They dismounted to explore, and Victoria found a tarnished silver locket in the ruins. Someone left their whole life behind, she said softly, turning the locket over in her hands. Sometimes that is the only choice, Lucas said. Sometimes the past is too heavy to carry forward. She looked at him, and something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. They were standing close, closer than they ever had before, and Lucas found himself reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Victoria did not pull away. Instead, she leaned into his touch, her eyes drifting closed. "Victoria," he said, his voice rough. We should not, I know," she whispered. "But I want to anyway. Is that terrible? After everything with Vincent, I should not want any man near me. But you are different, Lucas. You have been nothing but kind and patient and good. You make me feel safe. You make me feel like I could be whole again." "You were always whole," he said fiercely. "What he did to you, that was his evil, not your lack. Do you understand me? You are not broken." Her eyes opened, shining with tears. "Kiss me," she said, "please." He did, So gently it was barely a brush of lips, but it sent electricity through him. She made a small sound and pressed closer, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. The kiss deepened, still careful but full of longing and promise. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. "I cannot promise you it will be easy," he said. "I am rough around the edges, set in my ways, but I can promise I will never hurt you, never lift a hand to you in anger. I can promise I will respect you and protect you and do my best to make you happy. If you will have me." "Are you proposing, Lucas Bradford?" "Not yet. You have only known me 2 months and you are still healing, but I am telling you my intentions so you know where my heart stands. When you are ready, if you are ever ready, I will be here." She kissed him again, soft and sweet. "I think I could love you," she whispered. "I think maybe I already do." They rode back as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Lucas felt lighter than he had in years, as if some burden he had been carrying had finally lifted. He dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could have something good in his life. That maybe both of them could find healing together. That night, Victoria came to the main house after dark. She did not say anything, just stood at the door until Lucas opened it wider and let her in. They sat together on his old couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, and talked until the fire burned down to embers. She told him about her childhood in Philadelphia, about the parents she had lost to cholera, about the loneliness that had made her vulnerable to Vincent's lies. He told her about his dreams for the ranch, about wanting to build something lasting, about the loneliness that had become his constant companion. "I thought I was done with people," he admitted. "After Caroline left, I decided it was easier to be alone, less chance of being hurt." "Who is Caroline?" "A woman I thought I loved, who I thought loved me. But when someone with better prospects came along, she left without looking back. It taught me that I could not trust anyone with my heart." Victoria lifted her head to look at him. "I am sorry she hurt you. But I am glad you gave me a chance despite that." "So am I," he said, and meant it with everything in him. The kiss that followed was different from their first, deeper and more urgent. Lucas felt years of loneliness falling away, replaced by a fierce need to hold her, protect her, cherish her. When Victoria's hand slid up to tangle in his hair when she shifted to straddle his lap, he groaned and pulled back just enough to speak. "Victoria, if we do not stop now, I will not want to stop at all." "Then do not stop," she said. "I want this, Lucas, I want you. I am not afraid, not with you." He searched her eyes, making sure, and saw only desire and trust looking back at him. "Are you certain?" "I have never been more certain of anything." He carried her up to the loft, to his bed, and loved her with a gentleness that brought tears to both their eyes. Afterwards she lay in his arms, her head on his chest, and he stroked her hair and marveled at the gift he had been given. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Not just tonight, always." "Always," she agreed and kissed his shoulder, but their happiness was not to last undisturbed. 2 weeks later, on a cold November morning, Lucas was working with the horses in the corral when he saw 3 riders approaching. He recognized the look of them immediately, hard men with guns on their hips and trouble in their eyes. His blood ran cold. "Victoria," he called sharply. She was in the garden and she looked up at his tone, saw the riders, and went pale. "Get in the house. Bolt the door. Do not come out no matter what you hear." "Lucas, go now," she ran, and he heard the door slam and the bolt shoot home. He turned to face the riders as they reined up at the edge of his property. The man in the center was well dressed compared to his companions, with a neat beard and cold blue eyes. He sat his horse like a man accustomed to being obeyed, and there was a cruel set to his mouth that Lucas instinctively hated. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Lucas asked, keeping his voice level. "I am looking for my wife." the man said. "Her name is Victoria Kane. I have reason to believe she is here." "There is no one here by that name," Lucas said. "Do not lie to me." Vincent Kane's voice was soft but deadly. "I have been tracking her for 2 months. I know she is here. A man in town mentioned you had taken on a housekeeper, and the description matches. Now, you can make this easy and hand her over, or you can make it hard. Either way, I am taking what belongs to me. She does not belong to you. She is a free woman, and she does not want to go with you." Vincent's smile was a terrible thing. "I do not care what she wants. She is my wife, and the law says she is mine. Now step aside, or I will go through you." Lucas's hand moved to rest on the gun at his hip. "I will not let you take her. You would die for a woman you have known for what, a few months? That is foolish, friend." "Maybe so. But I made her a promise, and I keep my promises." For a long moment they stared at each other. Then Vincent sighed and gestured to his men. "Take her." The 2 men dismounted and started forward. Lucas drew his gun in a smooth motion, leveling it at Vincent. "Tell them to stop." "Or what?" "You will shoot me. My men will kill you before your body hits the ground." "Maybe, but you will be just as dead." They were at an impasse, tension thick in the air. Then a shot rang out from the house, and one of Vincent's men cried out, clutching his shoulder. Lucas looked up to see Victoria standing in the doorway, Lucas's rifle in her hands, her face set in hard lines. "Get off this land," she called out. "I will not go with you, Vincent. I am not your property." "You are my wife," Vincent snarled. "I am nothing to you but a possession you cannot stand to lose. But I am not going back. I would rather die first." Vincent's face twisted with rage. "That can be arranged." He reached for his gun. Everything happened at once. Vincent drew, Lucas fired, and Victoria screamed. Vincent jerked back in his saddle, blood blooming on his shoulder, his gun falling from his hand. His men drew their weapons but found themselves facing both Lucas and Victoria, and after a moment of calculation, they helped their boss onto his horse and retreated. "This is not over," Vincent called back as they rode away. "She is my wife by law. I will come back with the marshal. I will see you hang for shooting me, and I will take her back where she belongs." Lucas watched them go, his heart pounding. Then he turned and ran to Victoria. She was shaking, the rifle nearly falling from her hands. He took it from her and pulled her into his arms. "It is all right," he murmured. "You are safe. I have got you." "He will come back," she said against his chest. "He will bring the law, and they will make me go with him. It does not matter what he did to me. I am his wife." "No," Lucas said fiercely. "We will find a way. I will not let him take you." But even as he said it, he knew they were in serious trouble. In the eyes of the law, Victoria was Vincent's wife, and he had every right to reclaim her. The fact that Lucas had shot him would not help matters. They needed help, and they needed it fast. That afternoon, Lucas rode into Mineral Point and went straight to the sheriff's office. Tom Doherty listened to his story with a grave expression. "This is bad, Lucas," he said when Lucas finished. "If Kane brings the marshal, there is not much I can do. The law is on his side. Even though he is a criminal, Victoria can testify to what she knows about his activities. The word of a runaway wife against her husband. You know how that will go. And unless you have proof of his crimes, what if we did have proof?" The voice came from the doorway. Both men turned to see Victoria standing there, her face determined. "What if I could prove that Vincent is involved in illegal activities?" "Victoria, what are you doing here?" Lucas demanded. "I told you to stay at the ranch." "I am not a possession you can order about," she said sharply. Then her expression softened. "I am sorry, but we are in this together, Lucas, and I think I know how to stop Vincent." She turned to the sheriff. "Before I left Philadelphia, I took something from Vincent's safe. Papers, documents detailing his business dealings. I did not know if they would ever be useful, but I hid them in the lining of my dress. If those documents can prove he is a criminal, would that change anything? Tom leaned forward. Depends on what is in them. But if they show criminal activity, particularly anything involving murder or claim jumping, that could certainly complicate things for Mr. Kane. Where are these papers now? Hidden in my cabin. I can bring them to you. They rode back to the ranch together, and Victoria retrieved a small bundle of papers from where she had sewn them into her mattress. Tom examined them carefully, his eyes widening as he read. "This is explosive," he said. "If what is detailed here is true, Kane is involved in everything from fraud to smuggling to conspiracy to commit murder. There are names here, dates, financial records. This could bring down some powerful people." "Will it help Victoria?" Lucas asked. "It will help. I will send a telegraph to the territorial marshal in Virginia City, explain the situation. With this evidence, they will be far more interested in arresting Kane than in helping him reclaim his wife." Tom looked at Victoria. "But I have to warn you, this will mean testifying, possibly going back to Philadelphia for a trial. It will not be easy." "I know," Victoria said, "but I am tired of running. If I can stop Vincent, if I can make sure he never hurts anyone else, it will be worth it." The next 3 days were tense. Lucas barely left Victoria's side, and they took turns keeping watch through the nights. He taught her to shoot properly with both rifle and pistol, and she proved to be a quick study. They talked about what would happen if Vincent came back, made plans for every contingency they could think of. On the 4th day, the territorial marshal arrived in Mineral Point with 2 deputies. He met with Tom Doherty, examined the evidence, and took statements from both Lucas and Victoria. He was a tall man named Harold Morton, in his 50s with graying hair and sharp eyes. "This is serious business," he told Victoria. "If you are willing to testify, we have enough here to arrest Kane and several of his associates. But you need to understand what you are facing. These are powerful men with resources. They will try to discredit you, to make you out to be a liar and a runaway wife. It will be ugly." "I do not care," Victoria said. "I want to stop him." "And you, Bradford," Marshal Morton turned to Lucas. "You shot Kane. That is assault, regardless of the circumstances. He was threatening Victoria, and he was trespassing on my land. I was defending my property. That will be for a judge to decide. But given Kane's record as detailed in these documents, I think you will have a strong case for self-defense." 2 days later, Vincent Kane was arrested at a hotel in Helena along with 3 of his associates. The evidence Victoria had provided was damning, and the territorial authorities were eager to make an example of Eastern criminals coming west to prey on honest folk. Vincent tried to press charges against Lucas for assault and against Victoria for theft, but with the weight of his own crimes staring him down, he had little leverage. The trial took place in Virginia City that winter. Lucas and Victoria made the journey together, along with Tom Doherty and Marshal Morton. It was Victoria's first time leaving the ranch since she had arrived, and Lucas could see how nervous she was. He held her hand the entire way, offering what comfort he could. The trial lasted 3 days. Victoria testified clearly and calmly, detailing Vincent's abuse and his criminal activities. Vincent's lawyer tried to break her down, to paint her as a hysterical woman inventing stories to escape her marital duties, but Victoria stood firm. The documents she had taken spoke for themselves, and additional evidence gathered by the marshal's office corroborated her testimony. In the end, Vincent Kane was convicted on multiple charges including fraud, smuggling, and conspiracy to commit murder. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The charges against Lucas were dismissed, with the judge ruling he had acted in lawful defense of himself and his property. And perhaps most importantly, the judge granted Victoria a divorce on the grounds of cruelty and abuse, one of the few times such a divorce had been granted to a woman in the territory. They returned to the ranch in late December, 2 days before Christmas. Snow covered the valley, turning everything white and clean. Victoria stood on the porch of the main house, looking out at the land, and Lucas came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "It is over," he said quietly. "You are free." "We are free," she corrected, leaning back against him. "Both of us." He turned her in his arms to face him. "I know we talked about waiting, about giving you time to heal, but I do not want to wait any longer. Victoria Kane, will you marry me? Will you let me love you for the rest of my life? Will you build this ranch with me, build a family with me, build a future with me?" She was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes," she said. "Yes to all of it. I love you, Lucas Bradford. You saved my life, but more than that, you gave me a reason to want to live again. Yes, I will marry you." They were married in Mineral Point on New Year's Day, 1874, in a simple ceremony at the church with Tom Doherty and his wife as witnesses. Victoria wore a new dress of deep blue that matched her eyes, and Lucas wore his best suit. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas kissed her as if she were the most precious thing in the world, because to him she was. The winter was long and harsh, but Lucas and Victoria barely noticed. They were cocooned in their own happiness, discovering each other fully without fear or restraint. They spent long nights talking, making love, planning their future. Victoria moved into the main house, and together they made it truly home, with her touches everywhere, books and flowers and warmth. Spring came, and with it new life. Victoria discovered she was pregnant in April, and Lucas was beside himself with joy. He had never imagined he would have a family, had resigned himself to a solitary life. Now he found himself dreaming of children running through the house, of teaching his sons and daughters to ride and work the land. "What if I am a terrible mother?" Victoria asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Her hand rested on her still flat stomach. "What if I do not know how? You will be wonderful," Lucas said with absolute certainty. "Look at how you have transformed this place. Look at how you love. Our children will be blessed to have you." "Our children," she repeated, smiling. "I like the sound of that." The baby, a boy they named James Lucas Bradford, was born in January of 1875. He had Victoria's dark hair and Lucas's gray eyes, and from the moment Lucas held his son for the first time, he knew a love so fierce it terrified him. Victoria took to motherhood with the same determination she brought to everything, and watching her with their son filled Lucas with an emotion he could barely name. Life settled into a new rhythm. The ranch prospered, and Lucas hired 2 hands to help with the work, freeing him to spend more time with his growing family. Victoria proved to have a head for numbers and took over the ranch's accounts, discovering she had a talent for business. Together they built the Double Bar B into one of the most successful ranches in the territory. 2 years after James was born, Victoria gave birth to twin girls, Sarah and Elizabeth. Lucas was outnumbered now, living in a house full of women, and he loved every chaotic moment of it. The twins had Victoria's violet blue eyes and sunny dispositions, and James was a devoted big brother, always watching over his sisters. One evening in the summer of 1879, Lucas and Victoria sat on the porch as they had so many times before, watching their children play in the yard. James, now 4, was teaching the twins, 2 years old, to collect flowers, his small face serious with the responsibility. "You ever think about that day I walked into your valley?" Victoria asked, her hand in Lucas's. "Every day," he admitted. I think about how close I came to not offering you that job, to not taking the chance. I think about how different my life would be without you. I think about how I almost kept walking," she said. "How scared I was to trust you, to trust anyone. I thought I was broken beyond repair. But you were not. You were just wounded, and wounds heal." She turned to look at him, her eyes soft. "You taught me that. You taught me that love does not have to hurt, that it can be gentle and patient and kind. You taught me to trust again, not just you but myself. You taught me to open my heart again," he said. "After Caroline, I thought I was done with love. I thought being alone was safer. But then you walked into my life and you offered me something I thought I had lost. What was that? Trust. Hope. A reason to believe in good things again. You saw me at my most guarded, my most broken, and you trusted me anyway. You let me prove I could be someone worth loving." Victoria leaned over and kissed him softly. "You were always worth loving, Lucas Bradford. Always." As the sun set over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Lucas Bradford looked at his wife and children and felt a peace he had never imagined possible. He had been a lonely rancher once, bitter and closed off, convinced that his life would be one of solitary work and quiet regret. But then, a desperate woman had walked into his valley, and he had offered her a job with no questions asked. In return, she had offered him trust, love, and a future he had thought forever lost. The years that followed were not without challenges. There were hard winters and dry summers, cattle lost to disease and prices that fluctuated wildly. There were moments of fear when one of the children fell ill, moments of grief when Tom Doherty passed away, moments of struggle as they worked to keep the ranch afloat during difficult times. But through it all, Lucas and Victoria faced everything together, their bond strengthening with each trial overcome. James grew into a strong, serious boy who loved the ranch as much as his father did. He could rope and ride by the time he was 7, and he had a way with animals that amazed everyone. The twins, Sarah and Elizabeth, were different as night and day. Sarah was adventurous and bold, always trying to keep up with her older brother. Elizabeth was thoughtful and gentle, preferring books and drawing to outdoor work, though she loved the ranch just as much. In 1881, Victoria gave birth to their 4th child, another boy they named Thomas in honor of their old friend the sheriff. The children adored their baby brother, and the house was filled with laughter and noise and life. Lucas built an addition onto the main house to accommodate their growing family, and Victoria planted roses around the porch that bloomed every summer in a riot of color. As the years passed, Lucas and Victoria became pillars of the community. They helped their neighbors during hard times, attended church every Sunday, and hosted gatherings at the ranch for holidays and celebrations. Victoria started a small school on their property for the ranch children in the area, teaching reading and arithmetic in the morning before her other duties. Lucas served on the territorial council, lending his voice to matters of land management and water rights. Through it all, their love for each other never dimmed. If anything, it grew deeper and richer with time, tempered by shared experience and mutual respect. They still sat on the porch together in the evenings, still talked for hours about everything and nothing, still looked at each other as if seeing something precious and miraculous. In the summer of 1890, on their 17th wedding anniversary, Lucas gave Victoria a locket, silver and beautiful, engraved with both their initials. Inside were tiny photographs of their 4 children. "You remember the locket you found at that old homestead?" he asked as he fastened it around her neck. "I remember everything about that day," she said. "That was the day we first kissed. I wanted to give you something to carry with you always, a reminder that you did not leave your life behind when you came here." You built a new one, a better one, and you filled it with love. She touched the locket, tears in her eyes. We built it together. Yes, he agreed. Together. As they stood on the porch of their home, surrounded by the land they had worked and the family they had created, Victoria thought back to the desperate, frightened woman who had stumbled into this valley 17 years before. That woman had been running from death and pain, convinced she had no future worth living. She could never have imagined the life she would build here, the love she would find, the healing that would come. Lucas looked at his wife, at the silver threading through her dark hair and the laugh lines around her eyes, and thought she had never been more beautiful. She had given him everything he had been too afraid to hope for: love, family, purpose, joy. She had trusted him with her broken heart, and together they had made each other whole. Their children grew and thrived. James took over more and more of the ranch work as he got older, showing a natural talent for leadership and animal husbandry. Sarah surprised everyone by developing an interest in veterinary medicine after helping birth a difficult calf, and she eventually traveled to San Francisco to study, one of the first women in the West to do so. Elizabeth married a neighboring rancher's son, a gentle young man who loved her quiet strength, and they built a home on the far edge of the Bradford property. Thomas, the baby, proved to have a head for business even sharper than his mother's, and he eventually expanded the ranch's operations, raising horses as well as cattle. As Lucas and Victoria grew older, they stepped back from the day-to-day work of the ranch, content to let their children and grandchildren take over. They spent their days in the comfortable rhythms of long marriage, still holding hands, still stealing kisses when they thought no one was looking, still finding joy in each other's presence after all the years. On a crisp October evening in 1905, Lucas and Victoria sat on their porch as the sun set over the mountains. They were in their 60s now, their faces lined with age and experience, their bodies not as strong as they once were. But their hands were intertwined, fingers laced together with the ease of long habit. 32 years, Victoria said softly. Can you believe it has been 32 years since I walked into this valley? Best decision I ever made, offering you that job, Lucas said. Best decision I ever made, trusting you enough to accept it. They sat in comfortable silence, watching as their grandchildren played in the yard under the watchful eyes of their parents. The ranch had grown over the years, now one of the most prosperous in Montana. But more than that, it had become a haven, a place where family gathered and love multiplied. "Do you ever regret it?" Lucas asked suddenly. "Giving up your old life, staying here in this remote valley instead of going back east?" Victoria looked at him with surprise. "Regret it?" "Lucas, you gave me my life. Everything I have, everything I am, started the day you offered me a job with no questions asked. You saw someone in need and you helped, expecting nothing in return. You kept your promise to protect me, even when it put you in danger. And then you loved me, so patiently and thoroughly that you healed wounds I thought would never close." She reached up to cup his weathered face. "How could I regret any of that? I just want to make sure you have been happy," he said. "That is all I have ever wanted." "I have been more than happy. I have been blessed beyond measure." She leaned over and kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you, Lucas Bradford. I loved you then, I love you now, and I will love you until my last breath. And I love you, Victoria Bradford. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." They sat together as the stars came out, one by one, filling the vast Montana sky. The sounds of their family drifted to them from the house, laughter and voices raised in conversation and argument and love. The land stretched out around them, the same valley where a desperate woman and a lonely rancher had found each other all those years ago. Lucas thought about the man he had been before Victoria came into his life, hard and closed off, convinced that solitude was his destiny. He thought about how close he had come to turning her away that day, to letting his fear and mistrust dictate his actions. And he thanked God that he had found the courage to offer her a chance, to trust when trust seemed impossible. Victoria thought about the woman she had been, beaten down and terrified, certain she had no future beyond running and hiding. She thought about the leap of faith it had taken to accept Lucas's offer, to trust a stranger when every instinct told her to run. And she was grateful beyond words that she had found the courage to stay, to build a life with a good man in a beautiful place. As they sat together under the stars, surrounded by the evidence of their love and their life's work, Lucas and Victoria Bradford knew they had found something rare and precious. They had found each other at their lowest moments and had built each other up, creating something beautiful from the ashes of their pasts. They had loved fiercely and faithfully, raising children who would carry that love forward into the future. The lonely rancher had offered her a job with no questions asked. She had offered him trust he thought he had lost forever. And together, they had built a legacy that would endure for generations, a testament to the healing power of love and the courage it takes to trust again after betrayal. The evening deepened into night, but Lucas and Victoria remained on their porch, reluctant to leave the peace of the moment. Around them, the ranch settled into sleep, the animals quiet in their pens, the chickens roosting, the horses shifting softly in the barn. Inside the house, lamps were lit, and they could see their family moving about through the windows, their children and grandchildren, the life they had created together. "Tell me about tomorrow," Victoria said, something she had asked countless times over the years. It was a game they played, a reminder to always look forward, to never take their future for granted. Lucas smiled and pulled her closer. "Tomorrow we will wake up together, as we always do. I will make the coffee while you start the bread. James will come by to discuss expanding the south pasture, and you will pretend not to notice when he sneaks extra bacon from the kitchen. Sarah might write from the city with news of her latest case. Elizabeth will bring the children by after school, and Thomas will argue with me about buying that new breeding bull, and you will settle the argument by proving you are right with your numbers." "That sounds perfect," Victoria said with a laugh. "And tomorrow night, we will sit here again, just like this, and I will hold your hand and think about how lucky I am, just like I do every night. And I will thank God for bringing me to you," she added, "just like I do every night." They sat in comfortable silence for a while longer, and then Lucas spoke again, his voice thoughtful. "You know, I was talking to young Michael Patterson the other day. He has been having trouble with his wife, nothing serious, just the usual adjustments of new marriage. He asked me what the secret was to a long, happy marriage. What did you tell him? I told him there is no secret, just choices. You choose to trust, even when trust is hard. You choose to forgive, even when you are hurt. You choose to see the best in each other, even on the worst days. You choose love, over and over again, until one day you wake up and realize that choosing love has become as natural as breathing." He squeezed her hand. "That is what you taught me, Victoria, how to choose love. And you taught me that love does not have to hurt," she said. "That a man can be strong without being cruel, protective without being possessive. You taught me what it means to be a true partner, to be seen and valued and respected." She paused, then added softly, "You taught me that I was worth saving." "You were always worth saving," Lucas said fiercely, the old protectiveness flaring up even after all these years. "You just needed someone to see it. And you did. You saw past the fear and the damage, and you saw me, the real me. No one had ever done that before." They rose finally, helping each other up with the stiffness of age, and made their way inside. The house was warm and welcoming, filled with the accumulated treasures of a life well lived. Photographs on the walls, children's drawings framed and hung with pride, quilts Victoria had sewn, furniture Lucas had built with his own hands. As they prepared for bed, moving through the familiar routines of 3 decades together, Lucas watched his wife brush out her hair, now more silver than dark, and felt his heart swell with love. She was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, still the bravest person he knew, still the one who made his life worth living. Victoria caught him watching and smiled. "What are you thinking about?" "About that day I saw you walking across my land. About how something told me to ride down and meet you instead of waiting to see if you would pass by. About how my whole life changed in that moment." "Mine too," she said. She set down her brush and came to him, slipping into his arms as naturally as breathing. "I was so tired that day, Lucas. Tired of running, tired of being afraid, tired of just surviving. Part of me wanted to just lie down and never get up. But then I saw you, and something in your eyes told me I could trust you. I did not understand it then, but I do now." "What do you understand?" "That we were meant to find each other. That God or fate or whatever you want to call it brought us together because we were exactly what the other needed. You needed someone to trust you, to see past your rough edges to the good man underneath. And I needed someone to prove that not all men are cruel, that love can heal instead of hurt." They held each other in the quiet of their bedroom, 2 souls who had found their home in each other. Outside, the Montana night was vast and star-filled, the land they had built their life on stretching out in all directions. Inside, they were safe and warm and loved, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived and a love that had endured. As they climbed into bed, Lucas pulled Victoria close, her head resting on his shoulder as it had for thousands of nights before. He pressed a kiss to her hair and breathed in the familiar scent of her, lavender and bread dough and home. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For trusting me. For staying. For building this life with me. For giving me a family and a purpose and a reason to wake up smiling. For everything." "Thank you for saving me," she whispered back. "For seeing me when I felt invisible. For protecting me when I was vulnerable. For loving me when I thought I was unlovable. For everything." They drifted off to sleep in each other's arms as they had done for over 3 decades, 2 hearts beating in sync, 2 lives woven so tightly together that neither could imagine where one ended and the other began. The years continued to pass, gentle now, filled with grandchildren and great-grandchildren, with quiet days and peaceful nights. Lucas and Victoria grew old together gracefully, their love a constant in a changing world. They saw Montana become a state, saw the old ways of the West give way to new technologies and new ideas, but their love remained timeless, anchored in the choices they had made so long ago to trust and be trusted, to love and be loved. On a spring morning in 1912, Lucas Bradford passed away peacefully in his sleep, with Victoria holding his hand. He was 71 years old and had lived a full and happy life, surrounded by family and love until the very end. Victoria was heartbroken but grateful for the 40 years they had shared, for every moment of joy and struggle and growth they had experienced together. She lived another 5 years, spending her days with her children and grandchildren, telling stories of the ranch in the old days, of the wild Montana territory, and the man who had saved her life with his kindness. She spoke of Lucas with such love that her grandchildren understood they had witnessed something rare, a marriage built on mutual respect and deep affection, a love story for the ages. When Victoria Bradford passed away peacefully in her sleep in the spring of 1917 at the age of 73, she was laid to rest beside Lucas on a hill overlooking the valley where they had met. Their children carved a headstone that read, Lucas Bradford, 1841–1912, and Victoria Bradford, 1844–1917. Beloved parents and grandparents, they found each other when hope seemed lost and built a legacy of love that endures forever. The Double Bar B Ranch continued to thrive under the management of their descendants, and the story of how it began became family legend, passed down through generations. They told of a lonely rancher who offered a desperate woman a job with no questions asked, and how she offered him trust when he thought he had lost the ability to believe in anyone. They spoke of a love built on respect and patience, of two wounded souls who healed each other, of a partnership that transformed a simple ranch into a home filled with laughter and love. And on summer evenings, when the family gathered on the porch of the old house, watching the sun set over the Montana mountains, they felt the presence of Lucas and Victoria in every board and beam, in every fence post and pasture. The ranch was their legacy, but more than that, their love was their legacy, a reminder that even in the hardest times, even when trust seems impossible and love feels lost, there is always hope. There is always the possibility of finding someone who sees past your wounds to the person underneath. Someone who chooses to love you, flaws and all, and build something beautiful together. The story of Lucas Bradford and Victoria Kane, of a lonely rancher and a desperate woman who found each other in the wild Montana territory and created a love that lasted a lifetime, lived on. It inspired their descendants to lead with kindness, to offer help without judgment, to trust even when trust is hard, and to believe in the transforming power of love. And in that way, though Lucas and Victoria were gone, they never truly left. Their love story continued in every generation, a testament to the courage it takes to open your heart again after it has been broken, and the beautiful things that can grow when two people choose to trust, to love, and to build a future together.